Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 4 is back to basics. It is intrigue. Now that the Night King is dead and the threat of the White Walkers has all been dealt with, there are some cracks forming in the Grand Alliance. Yes, they still have to deal with Cersei, but that doesn't look to be a big enough threat to keep all of these groups together. Last episode, Episode 3, had the highest ratings ever for any Game of Thrones episode, but it looks like it also had the highest amount of hatred online for any episode ever, so it'll be interesting to see if people have actually abandoned watching Game of Thrones when there's only 3 episodes left in the entire series. The episode starts out with the camera panning up a dead body. I thought it was Theon Greyjoy to begin with, and then we see the person's head, and I had absolutely no idea who it was. Then we see Dany crying over the person. I still couldn't recognize who the person was, but I thought the only person Dany would be crying over is Jorah Mormont, and it is Jorah Mormont. I don't know what's going on here. His hair's become a lot more orange, and I just didn't pick up that that's actually Jorah Mormont. Then we get some other new red-headed guy who's dead, and I thought, who is this one? And then we see Sansa crying over this person, and it's clearly Theon Greyjoy. But again, I'm not really sure what's going on with the colouring. Have they done something with the lighting here? Is everything more orange than it should be? But the corpses didn't quite look right to me. But anyway, there's a lot of a somber feel at the start of the episode. They take their time, and there probably isn't enough time to do it. I know they want to get the right thing out there, but they've only got 2 episodes after this episode. So there's not that much time to be giving the amount of time that some things might deserve to have. But for the first bit of this episode, it's all somber, they're burning off the bodies and so on, everybody's quite sad. And after all of the grieving, we get everybody celebrating in the Great Hall, and things go back to usual. We've got all kinds of suspicious looks going on. Tyrion is looking at Sansa. Sansa is looking at Dany. Everybody now is sort of thinking what's happening now. We've got a little bit of plotting going on. There's some fracturing happening with the Alliance. This is Game of Thrones. This is exactly what I want to see. So all the battles are fine and all that sort of stuff's all good. But for me, the intrigue, I think, is what sets Game of Thrones apart. So we've gotten rid of a big battle. Good. Now we've got suspicion going on. Who's allying with who? What's going to happen? They still all have to deal with Cersei. But is Cersei really that big a threat? Who's going to actually get the Iron Throne at the end of the season? The Giantsbane is as good as usual here. He's playing his sort of drunken, happy self, and he's rallying around Jon, and we get a bit more of a friction between Jon and Dany. Dany can see that people actually respect Jon as a leader, whereas it looks like most of the people in Westeros aren't really keen on Dany. She's got all the people she brought across with her that like her, but she looks like she's feeling a little bit threatened that people think that Jon is great, and she learnt in the previous episode, or was it the episode before that, it was 2 episodes ago, that Jon is in fact her nephew, and he has the rightful claim to the throne. His claim to the throne is stronger than her claim, so she looks like she's getting a little bit worried about where Jon is. Does Jon want to take the Iron Throne? And when Dany and him get together again, he basically brings back up again that she's his auntie and he can't really be with her, but she still is queen. And she says that that's fine as long as you don't tell anyone who you are. And he sort of says, well, I'm a bit of an honest guy, I have to tell my family. And she basically forbids him and says, no, you can't tell the family. And she gives him a commandment, and they leave on fairly poor terms. And Jon disobeys Dany. He gets the other Stark children. He gets Arya, Brand, and Sansa together. And he gets Bran to tell the other 2 who he really is. He's the Targaryen, and he's the rightful ruler of Westeros. But he makes Arya and Sansa swear to not tell anyone about it. And we get a bit more intrigue. Bronn has made his way up all the way to Winterfell. 2 episodes ago, Queen Cersei asked him to assassinate the 2 Lannister brothers. And we get a little bit of a callback, I think, to Season 1. It might be Season 2. But whenever he first met Tyrion, I think Season 1, Tyrion reminded him that if anyone ever pays you to assassinate me or to kill me, I'll double their price. So he says that Cersei's going to give him Riverrun. And Tyrion says, okay, how about Highgarden? We'll give you Highgarden. And that seems to be the deal that's struck. Now, Highgarden's obviously not Tyrion's to give away. But this is what they've told Bronn, and Bronn said that he's not gonna fight in the battle coming up, but he's obviously going to be watching, and he's going to be ready to kill both of these guys if he gets betrayed. After this, the Hound sets off to go to King's Landing, and Arya joins back up with him like in Season 3, was it? Season 3 and 4, where the two of them travel together, and they have a little bit of a conversation. And I think the Hound says something like, "If I'm hurt this time, will you leave me for dead?" And she says, "Yep," or she says, "Probably," and he has a little laugh, a little smile about it. But they both got unfinished business. Presumably the Hound wants to kill his brother, who's kind of already dead, but still kind of alive. And I'm guessing Arya wants to kill Queen Cersei. That's the unfinished business both of them have down in the capital. It doesn't take long for Sansa to betray her word. She swore to Jon she wouldn't tell anyone who he truly was, and then she tells Tyrion. So her word isn't really worth what it used to be, but she is still very firmly against Dany, and it looks like she thinks because of Jon's claim this is the best way to go, to have Dany not ruling over things. She's going to support Jon, even if Jon doesn't want the support, and she'll be able to bring in quite a lot of support along with her. And Tyrion doesn't take long to spread it out. He says the same thing to Varys, and Varys asks him, how many people know this? I think Tyrion says about 8 people, and he says, it's no longer a secret, it's now information, and everyone will know very soon. And now the two of these guys have a bit of a conflict. It looks like Tyrion is firmly behind Dany, whereas Varys is openly saying that Dany's not going to be a good ruler, but Jon will be a much better ruler, and maybe they should look at having Jon take a hold of things. And it's kind of hinted that Varys is saying, we probably need to assassinate Dany. So even these two now, they're now at war with each other, so to speak. They're still allied to go and fight Cersei, but it looks like they've got a lot of problems developing amongst all of these allies. And towards the end of the episode, we have the setup for the next episode. So Jon is going to go down the King's Road, which it seems takes several months to get to King's Landing, or perhaps several days, depending on what the actual riders require. But he's going to be in a couple of weeks, I think they say this time, 2 weeks, to get the army down the King's Road down to King's Landing. And Dany's going to go with basically what's left of her forces. They're going to get on some boats, and she's going to take her dragons, and they're going to go to Dragonstone, the island that Stannis was on, a little island to the east of King's Landing. And here we see that there are in fact 2 dragons left. I thought the dragon that Jon was riding died last episode. I think that's the one called Rhaegar. And it's alive, it's back. It had some holes in its wings. It looks like it had seen better days, and the excuse was that because it was damaged, Jon didn't fly down on this dragon. He's going to march the army down. But the other dragon still has Dany riding on it, and then it gets shot with a couple of big arrows. Some sort of big giant ballista shoots it. It gets shot twice, and then it takes a big savage shot through the throat. Blood gushes out everywhere, and it plunges into the sea. It really has to be dead now. So I thought it died last episode, then they brought it back, and then they just killed it off again. Now, it's probably a good way to go, because it does show that these ballistas actually work quite well. So if they didn't have an extra dragon to kill, it might still not seem like a big threat, because you don't really know how good these arrows will work against the dragon. But it looks like they're a very good deterrent, and they can quite easily kill off a dragon. So these ballistas were on the boat of Euron Greyjoy, or all of his boats that he had out there, and they kind of ambush the fleet that Dany was bringing. They destroy the fleet, but most of Dany's people wash up on shore, and one of the dragons is dead. And so the whole threat of, well, I've got 2 dragons, I can still kind of kill everything, doesn't matter, that's really gone. So the dragon doesn't look like it's really that a superior thing to have anymore, as maybe it was 300 years ago when the Targaryens first arrived. We get a scene with Euron Greyjoy talking to Cersei about how he's killed one of the dragons, and she tells him that she is pregnant with his child. Now, I'm pretty sure she's actually pregnant with Jaime Lannister's child before Jaime went up north to help fight the undead. I think she said she was pregnant with him there. So she's lying to Euron about who the child is, but she's still got Euron on her side. But he's still a bit of a shifty guy, so I wouldn't count him out from betraying her at some point. But at this stage, it looks like he's firmly loyal to Cersei. And Jaime Lannister also heads down to King's Landing to see Cersei, just to complicate matters a little bit more. It's a bit unclear as to whether he's going to kill her off or join up with her. The way the episode has it, it looks like he's going to join up with Cersei. And he only really left to go north because he gave his word to fight the undead. So he didn't really leave Cersei as such. He sort of just said, I had an oath to keep, and he went north to fight the undead threat. And we get a little bit of a standoff at the very last scene of the episode. We can see King's Landing is now ringed with these ballistas. It's got a whole pile of them, so the dragon is probably in a lot of trouble if it tries to directly attack before they breach the walls and get rid of some of these ballistas. Jon's army's on the way. They might have to wait a couple of weeks for Jon's army to turn up. There's not that many people that are with Dany at the moment. Next episode, we're going to get a big battle, and then we're going to see who betrays who. So perhaps next episode there won't be any real betrayals going on. I assume Cersei will get defeated, but maybe that won't happen. Maybe Cersei will win, but I think Cersei will get defeated. And then we've got one more episode. I suppose that's where we'll see who actually stabs who in the back and who actually becomes the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.